What if I told you that one castle siege claimed over 1,400 civilian lives, not from battle, but from starvation in the foss pits? At Château Gaillard in 1204, French forces trapped English civilians inside the walls, turning the fortress into a graveyard. And that's just the beginning. On this countdown, we're exploring 10 castles where architecture decided fates. From Scotland to Syria, brutal sieges turned stone into suffering. Starvation, sabotage, collapsing towers, each flaw or innovation in the walls shaped who survived and who didn't. If you're passionate about how design and construction shaped history, consider subscribing for more in-depth architectural insights. Number 10. Urquhart Castle, Scotland. Urquhart Castle stands as a stark reminder of how geography shaped medieval warfare. Overlooking Loch Ness, this fortress controlled a critical Highland corridor during the Wars of Scottish Independence. Leaders like Andrew Moray and Robert the Bruce fought fiercely for it, knowing whoever held Urquhart could dominate movement across northern Scotland. Each siege left its mark. While exact numbers are lost to time, hundreds likely died during repeated assaults. But starvation often proved deadlier than steel. Surrounded by water and cliffs, the castle was nearly impossible to storm, but easy to isolate. Attackers simply cut off supply lines and waited for hunger to do their work. Urquhart's defences forced drawn-out warfare. Narrow approaches and layered gatehouses turned frontal attacks into slaughters. The missing South Tower wasn't lost to erosion. It was deliberately destroyed to deny shelter to future invaders. Today, visitors can trace siege damage along the shattered gatehouse and collapsed tower, each stone a silent casualty of war. Urquhart's ruins tell more than one story. They reveal how a stronghold could become both symbol and sacrifice in the fight for independence. Number 9. Carnafon Castle, North Wales. Carnafon Castle is a masterclass in medieval power projection. After conquering Wales, Edward I made it the crown jewel of his Ring of Iron, a chain of castles built to crush rebellion and enforce English rule. During 1294 to 1295 uprising, hundreds died in the surrounding conflict. But Carnafon never fell. Its concentric design, with layered walls and polygonal towers, forced attackers through multiple kill zones. Overlapping fields of fire made every approach a gauntlet. The Eagle Tower loomed over the landscape, giving defenders a commanding view. The King's Gate narrowed attackers into deadly choke points, while arrow slits maximized defense from every angle. These weren't just practical features. They sent a brutal message. Resist, and you'll be broken. Even today, its walls show signs of siege engines, but no major breach was ever made. Carnafon's design didn't just hold the line, it ended the conversation. With its imposing presence and strategic brilliance, the castle became both fortress and warning, a psychological weapon that helped Edward I maintain control over a defiant nation. Number 8. Stirling Castle, Scotland. Stirling Castle was the key to Scotland's heartland during the Wars of Independence. Its position atop steep cliffs gave defenders confidence. But in 1304, Edward I's army brought a new kind of threat. Instead of risking men on the crags, Edward deployed the Warwolf, the largest trebuchet of its time, at a site still marked today. This massive siege engine battered the walls relentlessly, breaking through the thinner sections and forcing the garrison to fall back. The siege dragged on for months. Cut off from supplies, the defenders faced starvation as much as enemy fire. Historians estimate hundreds perished from hunger and bombardment before the gates finally fell. In the aftermath, engineers thickened Stirling's walls and added new defensive lines, evidence of how siege warfare forced architecture to evolve. From the battlements, you can still see reminders of past struggles and the high cost of every miscalculation. Stirling proved that even the strongest natural defences could be undone, not by overwhelming force alone, but by precision, patience, and one overlooked weakness. Number 7. Château Gaillard, France. Château Gaillard was Richard the Lionheart's answer to French invasion, an advanced fortress with layered defences and machicolations perched high above the Seine. When Philip II's army encircled it in 1203, the design was meant to repel any siege. But after 8 grueling months, over 1,400 civilians were forced into the outer ditch, or fosse, where they starved. A tragedy still marked by the sunken ground visitors see today. Despite its reputation, Gaillard's innovations had limits. French troops exploited a critical weakness, a latrine shaft behind the chapel. Slipping through it, they infiltrated the inner ward and turned the machicolations against the defenders, raining death from above. The castle's curved walls, once brilliant at deflecting missiles, limited defenders' sightlines. French sappers collapsed the northeast wall using concentrated mining and bombardment. The fall of Château Gaillard ended English control of Normandy and exposed the flaws in even the most cutting-edge designs. The ruins today are more than stone. They're a reminder that in siege warfare, it wasn't always walls that failed. Sometimes it was what commanders couldn't or didn't see. Number 6. Kennallworth Castle, England. Kennallworth Castle's siege in 1266 proved that water could be a fortress's greatest weapon. For nearly 6 months, rebels loyal to Simon de Montfort the Younger resisted King Henry III's forces, protected by a vast artificial lake that flooded the surrounding fields. This water barrier, stretching hundreds of feet, forced attackers to build siege ramps and wooden shelters, called sows, over open water, a slow and perilous effort. Archaeologists have since uncovered remnants of these earthworks, revealing just how hard the royal army worked to breach the defences. Inside, conditions grew dire. Food ran out, disease spread, defenders resorted to eating horses and boiled leather. The siege cost hundreds of lives on both sides, not from battle, but from starvation and illness. But Kennallworth didn't fall to swords or fire. It ended with the dictum of Kennallworth, a negotiated peace that let the surviving defenders walk free. The outcome proved that prolonged sieges could grind enemies into compromise, and that a well-placed moat could buy enough time to change history. We've seen walls hold off armies and moats turn battles. But what happens when gunpowder enters the fight? If you've made it this far, you're clearly one of us. So hit like, subscribe, and tell us. Which castle would you least want to be trapped in during a siege? The next fortress? Let's just say, the cannons don't miss. Number 5. Pontfract Castle, England. During the English Civil War, Pontfract Castle became a proving ground for the power of gunpowder. Between 1644 and 1649, Royalist defenders withstood 3 brutal sieges. Cannon fire, smashed towers, never meant for explosives, collapsing walls, and burying soldiers alive. Even after King Charles I was executed, the garrison refused to surrender. Starving and diseased, They ate rats and dogs to survive. Today, Civil War-era cannonball craters still scar the keep's southern face. Visitors can explore the narrow tunnels and dungeons where defenders once moved in darkness, some of which collapsed under bombardment. Archaeologists uncovered makeshift earthworks, showing how desperate engineers tried to reinforce medieval walls with whatever they had. Pontefract's final fall in 1649 marked the end of more than a siege. It exposed the futility of traditional defences in the age of artillery. Soon after, castles were redesigned with angled bastions and thicker sloped walls to deflect cannon fire. Pontefract's ruins stand as a turning point, the moment medieval strongholds yielded to modern warfare and stone gave way to strategy. Number 4. Malbuk Castle, Poland. Malbuk Castle shows how sheer scale and smart engineering could defy even a victorious army. After their defeat at Grunwald in 1410, the Teutonic Knights retreated behind Malbuk's colossal brick walls. The Polish-Lithuanian forces followed, expecting a swift conquest. But Malbuk wasn't just fortified, it was designed to outlast anything. Its layered defences forced attackers through bottlenecks, exposing them to archers and boiling oil from murder holes. The red brick absorbed cannon fire better than stone, while narrow courtyards funneled enemies into perfect kill zones. Despite their momentum, the besiegers faced an exhausting stalemate. Disease and dwindling supplies broke their will long before the walls did. The knights waited, confident in their stockpiles and reinforcements. When Allied forces arrived, the invaders had no choice but to withdraw. Malbuk didn't just survive, it endured. Its defences proved that clever design and preparation could overcome numbers. Number 3. Rochester Castle, England. Rochester Castle stands as a brutal lesson in how evolving tactics could shatter even the mightiest defences. In 1215, during the First Barons' War, rebel forces seized the fortress to control the main road to London. King John responded with a siege that would make history. Hemmed in by hunger and constant assault, the defenders retreated into the massive Norman keep. John's engineers dug beneath the southeast corner, filled the mine with pig fat, and set it ablaze. The explosion collapsed part of the tower, creating a breach still visible today. Inside, the surviving defenders made a final stand among the fractured stone. After surrender, John ordered most spared, but hanged the crossbowmen as a warning. The siege sent shockwaves through military design. Square keeps, like Rochester, were suddenly obsolete. Rounded towers became the new standard, designed to deflect mining and artillery. Rochester's ruined corner tells the whole story. One targeted weak point brought down a seemingly invincible fortress and changed castle engineering forever. But as you'll see, future builders weren't done evolving. Number 2. Crac des Chevaliers, Syria. Crac des Chevaliers was the Crusader world's crown jewel, engineered to repel anything the medieval battlefield could throw at it. Built by the Knights Hospitaller, its concentric design forced attackers through 7 kill zones. Sloping outer walls deflected missiles, while towers offered panoramic fields of fire. A deep well inside the keep ensured the defenders wouldn't go thirsty, even under siege. In 1271, Mamluk Sultan Baybars arrived with siege engines and a plan. His army bombarded the fortress and tunneled beneath the southeast tower, targeting its weakest point, still visible in the fractured stone today. When brute force stalled, Baibars turned to deception. A forged letter from the Crusader High Command ordering the garrison to surrender. It worked. Hundreds died, but total annihilation was avoided. The defenders were granted safe passage, a rare concession in a brutal era. Now a UNESCO World Heritage Site, Krak still inspires awe. Its downfall wasn't due to poor design, but to exhaustion, isolation, and psychological warfare. And its legacy shaped centuries of fortress design, both in Europe and the Islamic world. Number 1. Edinburgh Castle, Scotland. Edinburgh Castle dominates the skyline from its volcanic summit, a natural fortress that defined the brutal Lang Siege of 1571 to 1573. Supporters of Mary Queen of Scots, led by William Kirkcaldy of Grange, held out against the regent's forces and their English allies for nearly 2 years. The cliffs made direct assault impossible, so the besiegers turned to heavy artillery and starvation. Inside, defenders endured disease, dwindling food, and isolation. The castle's secret cistern, tapped deep into the rock, kept them alive long after attackers expected surrender. But supplies eventually ran out. Historical accounts suggest hundreds died from hunger, illness, or bombardment before the garrison gave in. Even today, the Half Moon Battery stands as a reminder of the siege, built after the conflict to bolster the castle's defences against newer cannons. Kirkcaldy was executed, and the battered ramparts became a warning to any future rebels. Visitors who walk the walls today can trace the same desperate paths carved by starving men. Edinburgh stood tall, but in the end, it was hunger, not war, that brought it to its knees. Across these 10 castles, siege warfare didn't just leave scars, it reshaped architecture. Concentric walls, angled bastions, hidden wells. Each innovation was born from desperation and bloodshed. These ruins aren't just remnants of the past. They're blueprints of survival. From Château Gaillard's fatal latrine chute to Rochester's collapsed tower, every crack tells a story of when clever design met brutal reality. A single flaw could doom a fortress. A single breakthrough could save hundreds. So which innovation shocked you the most? The pig-fat explosion at Rochester? Or Crac des Chevalier's forged letter surrender? Let me know in the comments. And if you're hooked on the secrets carved in stone, hit subscribe. The past still has battles left to fight,